Well, hello and welcome to the new video, and this time we have this very favorite family car, the Kia Sportage, and this is the edition 30 model. So they are celebrating 30 years of this model, and yeah, well, let's have a closer look at it. So we have a lot of these black accessories here, like these covers for the mirrors, around the windows, the trim around the windows, and also the roof line. So a lot of black here and also around the arches, as you can see. Now let's go to the wheels. So we have, what are these? 235/50 R19 wheels. So 19-inch wheels, black wheels again for the design. And we have a very slight, like 1 degree, 2 degree positive caster in the front. Now I will tell this in the driving part, but I think there should be a little bit more caster to counter steer. And also we have these typical nowadays a plasticky bit for the aerodynamics around the wheel. Now as we go around the car and have a look from the side of the car, we can see that it is not particularly the most aerodynamic car. It has a drag coefficient of 0.33, so really not the most aero efficient. It is because of the body of the mid-size SUVs. These cars, they are never aero efficient. Now we have a wheelbase of 2.68 meters, which is on the shorter part of the segment, but yeah, it's reasonable for the comfort. Maybe I can show it to you right now. So let's have a look at the comfort in the back. And now also in this edition 30 model, you can have a look at these green elements here overall around the interior. But here in the back is actually very practical and very comfy. So the first thing, you can recline the rear seating position, just like it was a few weeks ago in the Kia EV6. So that's good. You have heated seats. You have some really like a practical hook here in the back part of the front seats. Here also on this side of the front seat, you have the charging ports for your phone, and then here in the middle you have the air conditioning and some storage for some small things. And you also have this central armrest, and the interior here is the combination of leather and suede. So that's quite cool. And probably the best thing is this recline of the seats. And in terms of space, you have very good space in all dimensions. So for my knees, very nice. Also for the feet and for the head as well. So yeah, quite a practical car in this regard, it has to be said. So nice for the family. Now let's have a look into the boot and maybe on the rear of the car. So this is again the sort of a design of the Kia. So the connecting of the rear lights, very futuristic shape. So yeah, let's have a look. So in this spec, it is manually controlled, but you can also have it electrically controlled. And what we have is the boot space is 562 liters and 1751 liters if you fold down the seats. Now 562 liters, that's a very decent storage. That's a very decent space. It is actually quite more than the Skoda Karoq, which Skodas, they usually have the most space, but this is like 40 liters more than that, and it's a very practical boot. It has to be said. So we have a 12-volt socket here. We have hooks in here, and also an underfloor storage where you can put the kit and stuff. So yeah, and also let's have a look here. Okay, I was thinking maybe there will be a spare tire, but there isn't. But yeah, anyway, still very practical boot, very decent capacity. So good in this regard. Okay, maybe I'm thinking if I can show you the lights and the signature of it. No, it doesn't work. Okay, and maybe one last part about the car is, as always, the suspension. And here, the Kia, we have negative cambers on both axles, but it is running more negative camber here on the rear and a very slight toe out. So they were trying to make the car also manage and handle quite well the corners. Yeah, but also now let's have a look at the engine, which is another thing I have to tell you. This car is a 4-wheel drive. You can have it also front-wheel drive in this spec, and you can also get a diesel. But this is the petrol powered four-wheel drive 1.6 turbo. Under here, as you can see, this mighty big batch of turbo, and the engine is producing 160 horsepower and 250 newton meters of torque, which are available to you from 1500 to 4500 rpm. And actually, this, like in the reality, it starts picking up from 1500 rpm, which is nice. We have a compression ratio of 10.5 to 1. We have a twin scroll turbocharger, which is the same technology as the twin power turbo from BMW, so a twin scroll turbo mounted at the rear part of the engine. We have a timing chain, not a timing belt, which is good from the long run. And yeah, the dynamics should be 0 to 100 in 9.7 and the top speed of 190 kilometers per hour. And here in the engine bay, well, as you can see, it looks quite okay. Air filter here, battery. Yeah, and the access seems all right for the mechanics. And also another thing that is important to tell you, the engine lies in front of the front axle, so there will be some understeer, and there is. Okay, yeah, but anyway, that would be it to the closer look at the Kia Sportage. And now let's take it on the road and let's see how it drives. Well, good morning and welcome to the Kia Sportage Edition 30 model. Now, let me talk you through the interior. Okay, microphone maybe not in the best position. Let me talk you through the interior. So I have to say, from the siblings of the Hyundai Tucson and the Kia Sportage, I really do prefer this interior of Kia Sportage. It is a sort of a much more of a cocoon-like around you. The Tucson, on the other hand, is much more airy. So I actually quite prefer this, and it is a quite nice and practical interior as well. Let me start up the car. So what I like about it, is that you have this new sort of a display here for the air conditioning, just like I had in the Kia EV6 a few weeks ago. It's a really practical solution that you can switch in between the multimedia settings and shortcuts and the air conditioning. So yeah, it's nice in this regard. Then you have this curved screen ahead of you, which now reminds me a little bit of a BMW for some reason, because it's curved. It's a nice quality screens. So yeah, really nice. And then the layout of the buttons, and there is quite a loads of buttons, particularly here in the central console. So you start the engine here, you have the heating of the seats, steering wheel, and another seat, and you can also have the ventilation in other specifications. Then you have two USB connectors, one USB-A, one USB-C for charging, 12-volt socket there in the front. You have then this rotating knob for changing the driving mode, so we can change now the driving modes into sports mode, which also changes the design of the panel ahead of you. And then you have this hill descent control, auto hold button. You can check the cameras with this button, as you can see here. It's a rear view camera, so you can turn that on or off, and you turn off the start and stop system. That's very important. And then another thing you need to turn off is the lane assist. So you go 1, 2 into settings, vehicle settings, that's 3, 4 and 5 steps of changing the lane, of turning off the lane assist. So yeah, not that bad, but sometimes when you're in a hurry it can be quite irritating. And then on the left side from the steering wheel, I don't know why is this such a new thing, you have a electronic parking handbrake, and you also turn off the traction control system. So yeah, otherwise the interior, I have to say, is quite nice. I really do like these dark green accents that you have here, this dark green leather, and then leather and plastic on the door handles. So it's really interesting, and I think the build quality is quite decent. And also a very interesting solution is these cup holders that sort of slide off from this inner part of this plastic. You just press this button and immediately they go off, and you have a cup holder there, and you also have a very decent storage under the armrest. The seats themselves are quite nice. They have a good support. They are combined leather and suede, and yeah, only the sitting position of the driver, I think it's funny because you're sitting so high up to the roof line. I feel like a woman sitting in this car. And I also, most men I see driving these cars, also the Skoda Karoq likes, they really look sort of feminine to me when I see them in driving these cars. So it's a strange position. It's not really a driver's like position. But anyway, let's get off, and now you can see the quality of the rear view camera, which is quite decent. It's not the sharpest that is there, but it's very usable. Okay, and yeah, so this edition 30 model is the celebration of 30 years of the Kia Sportage, and this car is extremely well sold here in my country. And also the part of the reason, apart from the practicality, which I told you in the closer look at the car, is that this car is made in Slovakia, so it's made in my country, so people are very proud, and it's also one of the reasons why they buy this car, because it's a home product basically. Even though it wasn't developed by us, we are only manufacturing it, but still people are very proud about it. So yeah, what we have here, let me talk you through. So we have you can buy this car with either a diesel or a petrol, and this petrol you can have with front-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. We have a four-wheel drive here. It's a 1.6 turbo. It's producing 160 horsepower and 250 newton meters of torque, which should be available from 1500 to 4500 RPM. And really, they are available from 1500 RPM. You can feel that when you're accelerating. So the turbo spools up. There's a twin scroll turbocharger, so the system of like the BMW twin power turbo, so twin scroll turbocharger in this engine. And yeah, let me maybe show you a little bit in the dynamics regard. This engine can pull if it wants. So we're now at 90 kilometers per hour. Let me rev it a little bit, and now we go 110, 120. Okay, maybe it's not that perfect as I thought. Now today is a very windy day, so it might seem like it's maybe quite noisy in here, but it is really not. I measured at 130 kilometers around 59 decibels. So, and also from the subjective feeling, it's a very relaxing car to drive and to talk to your passengers. Very quiet, so it's very comfortable in this regard, right? And yeah, we have this DCT 7-speed gearbox. Well, I have to say it is not the best of the gearboxes, of the automatic dual clutch gearboxes there are. It's quite hesitant. I also don't like that it's slipping the clutch quite a bit, actually. When you're setting off in the first and second gear, you have this feeling of the gearbox slipping the clutch, and then when you're using it in the manual mode, which I actually do all of the time this week, because that's sort of how I use the cars. Sometimes when you're accelerating and you're changing gears from 6th to 7th, it's sort of slipping the clutch. You have to let off the accelerator slightly for it to change into 7th gear. So really sort of a strange behavior of the gearbox now and then. And also then when you go off-roading, which you can because you have this lock mode in the well, let's say differential in the gearbox, so you can go off-roading. When you're going up the hill, it's all the time like slipping the clutch, and then after some time you are feeling the clutch, the smell of the clutch inside of the car. So yeah, I'm not really that sure. Now to the four-wheel drive system, it is preferring the front wheels, I think 60 to 40, or at least that's what it feels, and also what it indicates here when you're using the car. You can see it somewhere here in the settings. And in the standard mode, if you use the standard mode, the car always uses the front wheel drive, but always using the sports mode. And in the sports mode, it It turns on the rear wheels as well when it needs to give you best grip possible, to give you yeah, good acceleration from the point when there is a low grip condition. So yeah, but do I think it's important with a car like this? Well, maybe for some people, but in most aspects I do not think. I think front wheel drive is perfectly okay for this car, because these cars, and also what I want to tell you now, that this car actually, you know, from the outside it feels quite bulky and big, but now when I'm sitting inside, probably it's also because it's a dark interior, it feels very compact. I almost feels like I'm sitting in a seat, in a Kia seat, not in a bigger car. So yeah, so these cars, they are just hatchback on stilts, so I do not think that you do need the four-wheel drive system. Now, in terms of the conception and the layout of the car, I have to say, even when I first time looked at this car on the street, even when I wasn't testing it, I did not think that this is the best conception. The engine is mounted in front of the front axle, and me as a driver, I'm sitting nearly on top of the front wheels, very close to them, and this makes it really rather uncomfortable at times to drive on the roads. Even though I have to say, the damping of the car is really set in a comfortable way. It's trying to be as comfortable as it can, very soft. So yeah, let me get out of the tunnel. So yeah, but you still have these sort of movements with the car and your body with the body of the car, just because of the layout. We have a wheelbase of 68 meters, which is not long again. So these mid-size SUVs, they are combining that you have a short wheelbase, you are sitting high up, and I will always talk about these cars. They are not the most comfortable cars if you're looking for a comfortable car, even despite the damping here being quite soft, and even the springs. So yeah, but I guess for a normal family drive-about car, it is reasonably comfortable. For somebody who doesn't really think about the slightest annoyances and slightest changes, they would call it quite a comfortable car. Now, in terms of the fuel efficiency, I have to say, before I tested these cars, I read a few tests of my colleagues where they achieved huge consumptions, like 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers. But despite that, what I achieved is much better. With this car, you can drive for 7 liters, even lower, 6.7 on average, 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers, even 6.5. So I think really good in this regard. On the B roads, I was driving for 5.5, 5.7. So yeah, good overall fuel consumption. Only where it's bad is the motorway. On the motorway, because of the aerodynamics of the car, which this car has 0.33 drag coefficient, so it's not one of the most efficient cars in its class. 0.33 is actually quite a high drag coefficient. So on the motorway you drive in between 7.6, 7.7 liters at 130 kilometers. So the motorway is what makes the fuel consumption, the overall average fuel consumption, worse than it would have been otherwise. And that is always the case with these mid-size SUVs. Their aerodynamics are just inefficient. So yeah, that's how it is. But other than that, overall, you can get really nice numbers with this car. And that is partly also because you have a mild hybrid system here. So we have a very slight battery hidden here, from which is powered all of these electronics inside the car, and it is therefore making it easier of a job for the engine for the driving. So yeah, it's definitely it's definitely helping this mild hybrid system. And you also have a very slight regen that is coming with it, and it feels like, if I'm saying it to you, it feels like if you would be pressing the brake pedal on 15 to 20%. That's what it feels like when you let off the accelerator. And actually in a normal driving conditions where you just need a very slight braking, you just let off the accelerator and it slows down quite nicely. So I think it's a handy thing to have this regen always on. And then when you want to glide down the hill, you just put the gearbox into neutral and you make the consumption better still. So I think it's quite okay. Right, but maybe just for me to also to show you about the gearbox, let me show you. So I put down, yeah, so there is like this 1.5 to 2 seconds of, you know, it's going a little bit later, and yeah, I think it could be more lively, this gearbox. It could be more decisive, and yeah, it could be slightly better, I think. So now that would be to the driving experience, and let me come to the likes and dislikes of the car. Let's start off with the dislikes, because there are always less dislikes than likes. And so the first dislike, it would be the overall conception of the car. The driving position in the car, very close to the front wheels, the engine in front of the front wheels. The car is, because of this, really rather understeery. Even in normal speeds, you feel like the car is going into the corners with its nose, and it's pulling you out of the corner, even at normal speeds. Imagine that. So yeah, I think the conception is not quite right with this car, and I don't like the seating position too much. I'm sitting too high up, which I do not like, and it also looks ridiculous from the outside, the way you're sitting when you're a man, and a big man particularly. So that would be my first dislike to the car. Then there would be these dynamics. In the corners, it is really rather understeery. It is not the most driver's-like car. It is leaning onto the front wheels rather than the rear wheels, as it should, as a driver's car should. So it's leaning on the front. If you're looking for a driver's car, you should definitely pick something else, because this is not a driver's car. It's very decent for driving from point A to point B comfortably with your family, but if you want to enjoy driving, you need to choose a different brand. Yeah, and then another dislike would be, I think, the gearbox. I really cannot say I'm satisfied with it. The slipping of the clutch in the first, second gear, the behavior in the terrain, and also when I left it in the automatic mode for a bit, it could be using the torque a little bit better when you're going up the hill. It doesn't need to change down the gears when you're going up the hill at 100 kilometers per hour. So yeah, I much preferred driving it in the manual mode. You can achieve much better dynamics and fuel consumption. So I wouldn't leave the behavior of the car for the automatic gearbox. I wasn't really that satisfied with it. And then the last thing, I think, would be the subjective thing. I'm not the biggest fan of the design of the car. It is very futuristic, I give it that, but what I look for in the design of the car is nature. It's sort of a natural phase from some animals or something, and I'm not the biggest fan of these fantasy things, but I do know that a lot of people love this design, and I respect that. And now let's come to the likes. So in between the likes, there would be the practicality, and maybe a like of the conception is that how they made this car, despite not being very long, how they made it very spacious. So you have a very huge amount of space there for the rear passengers. They really do enjoy quite a bit of space there. They can adjust, another like, they can adjust the seating position in the back, so they can be more relaxed or more up front. So that's really good. Also, the equipment in the back is great. They have heated seats. That's great. They have these hooks on the rear part of the front seats, and they also have on the side of the front seats, they have the connectors. So it's a very interesting solution, putting them on the side of the front seats. So really big like in these, and also in the boot. So the boot is 562 liters as standard, and that's actually quite enormous if you compare it. That Skoda Karoq, which is usually Skodas, they have the biggest boot in its class, the Skoda Karoq only has 521 liters, and the Kia Sportage has 562 liters of the standard capacity. So yeah, really rather spacious. So that would be the like. And then another like would be the quietness of the car. Really, it is a really quiet and relaxing car to drive. You can just talk with your passengers nicely and just relaxing and go from place A to B, and the car is trying to be reasonably comfortable on the way. So yeah, it's actually quite a nice and relaxing drive in this regard. So that would be another like. And I also think I would give it as a like this front windshield ahead of me. It's quite compact, and I quite like this compactness of these compact front windscreens. I much prefer them before these big ones, because the wipers can go quite quickly, and yeah, I like it. And then another like also I have to mention is the quality of the interior and of the build. It's actually quite nice. There is not a lot of squeaking of the plastic here in the interior. I really do like the seats. They support the body really well. They look great as well. So big like in this regard as well. So yeah, I guess that would be it to the Kia Sportage Edition 30. It's a very favorite family car in between families, particularly in my countries, and I think it's quite a decent in its class for the family. But if you're still looking for a driver's engagement and slightly of a driver's fun maybe in a car, or that you want to be a dad that still wants to drive on a curvy road sometimes, you should definitely pick something else. But if you're looking for a practical family car and you don't care too much about driving it when you up the pace, this is quite a decent car for a decent amount of money, 37,000 euros. So yeah, it's all right with the Kia. So I guess that would be it to the Kia Sportage. And well, of course, more videos are coming on very soon, and I hope to see you in the very next video. In the meantime, take care of you and goodbye.